What's going on, everybody? Eric Lindquist at Stochastic here on the Odd Sharper channel, coming to you with another edition of Ladies, Leans, Likes, and Locks. Hit that like button, subscribe button, notification bell. Goes a long way for me on this video, goes a long way for you. That way you become apprised whenever great content is going live here at our little neck of the YouTube woods. We've reached double digits. It's week 10 here. I'm coming to you super early here on Friday morning. I'm about to catch a flight to New York City, but I wouldn't leave you hanging here in the NFL streets. Excited to talk through week 10, Sunday, specifically Monday. We'll talk about that in the premium Discord and elsewhere in the world. But Sunday, going to be a great day of betting. And, well, I've got 2 locks on the card for you, quite a few likes, and then some spots that I think we might be able to mine out some value from. But smash that like button as we get going. And then also check out Bet365 if you're in one of these 6 states. Look at that. I can count. 6 states. We're looking at Virginia, Kentucky, Ohio, New Jersey, where I'm going to be flying into today. So I'm going to take advantage of Bet365 as well as Colorado and Iowa. You want to check those out. And, well, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets just by $5. $5 is all it takes. As much as a cup of coffee. And then if you tip them at Starbucks, then it becomes 6. And then you're like, wow, I'm a good person. Get some good karma in your life. And then also, I don't know, $150 in bonus bets. If you're 21 and over, 18 over in Kentucky. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. But no time to dilly-dally. 12 games. I got a flight to catch. Producer Jacob, let's get to the picks. Game number 1 takes place in Frankfurt, Germany. Going to be very exciting to see. Well, we were supposed to have exciting football there. Miami and, well, Kansas City, they kind of won a Super Bowl. Ended up being one of the worst football games of the entire week. 21-0 right out of the gate. Yeah, there was the one Tyreek Hill play. Everybody enjoyed that. Did they? I don't really know. Either way, we're looking at Indianapolis taking on New England here in this spot. In Indianapolis, kind of an interesting one. You got Jim Irsay doing dances and weird stuff after games. You got Jonathan Taylor playing a lot more snaps. That's kind of the main thing of note here. But I'm actually looking at the New England side as something that I might be willing to short. We obviously know Mac Jones. He completely exists. You know who doesn't exist? Any semblance of a passing game with Mac Jones. A lot of that is also injury involvement, and then certain picks like Tyquan Thornton not really panning out. And my God, one pick ahead of the Minnesota Vikings. The Philadelphia Eagles selected Jalen Reagor. Jalen Reagor is now way down the depth chart here, but he's actually going to have to play a ton of snaps here for the New England Patriots. But does it even matter? As I was working through some of the numbers, he played 67% of the snaps, had a 12% target share in week 9. Demario Douglas is going to be out of the slot. I think for me, this is just, does Mac Jones throw it down the field, even against a porous secondary like you got in Indianapolis? They've got a great linebacking core, decent enough defense in front. No, but they're a pretty bad defense in general, and a lot of that is the secondary. And yet, I just want to see it. Does Jalen Reagor have it in him to go out and actually catch a ball? I don't know. I'm not going to short anything like 1.5 receiving yards, but I am going to short something very low. 22.5 receiving yards. It's minus 113 over at Caesars. And for some way, somehow, I think that's too low. Or sorry, too high. And we're going to go low. Go low. I'm not funny tonight. I'm not funny this morning. I'm not funny anytime. Anyway, we're going to look at shorting Mr. Jalen Reagor here. Again, very glad my Minnesota Vikings waited. Took that Justin Jefferson fellow. He's pretty good. Sounds like he might be getting off the IR, maybe not this weekend, but next week, week 11, that would be very fun. Very fun. But yeah, you want the under of 22.5 receiving yards, half unit, minus 113 at Caesars. I'm going to go to the next game. I don't know if I've had a worse take than I thought CJ Stroud was going to be terrible in the NFL. He's been downright incredible. And it's not just a box score thing, and it wasn't just last week in week 9 where he and Baker Mayfield went back and forth. Also, I thought it was pretty fascinating. Somebody had a Twitter thread about Baker Mayfield in his first 80 games, and then they put it next to Tom Brady in his first 80 games. Eerily similar. Also, Lamar Jackson. Eerily similar. I would rather have Lamar Jackson. I think we all would. Again, that's where it gets a little bit weird to try to dissect just purely numbers, because scheme is such a big part of football. What staff you end up on, what team you end up on, and that's where a guy like CJ Stroud, shout out to him, new coaching staff, new regime hanging out there in Houston, and they have developed him perfectly. Tank Dell was a phenomenal draft pick to have integrated immediately, and now maybe you get Robert Woods back, so you have another guy, Noah Brown, working out, Nico Collins really working out, really enjoying what Houston's put together there. But now they go into Cincinnati, and that should be a gauntlet. Now, I have to say, I thought I was going to be able to react to some type of news where T. Higgins got ruled out and Jamar Chase was going to play. Or sorry, other way around. Jamar Chase was going to sit out and T. Higgins was going to play. And it ended up working out completely differently. So hit the reset button with me. Officially on Thursday, T. Higgins, doubtful to suit up on Sunday, and Jamar Chase was limited in practice. So, like, basically the inverse of what I was expecting to have happen here. How does that matter? Well, first of all, Cincinnati's playing frickin' fantastic football. We're all seeing that. They ended up running over Buffalo. Josh Allen didn't really look confident against that defense. Stephon Diggs is so good, but Gabe Davis doesn't exist. Where is Gabe Davis? We should send out a search party for Gabe Davis. I don't know. All my fantasy players know what I'm talking about. But I am looking at the over if I do anything here. But again, I don't feel that great if we're not going to have T. Higgins. T. Higgins was fantastic last week and finally started seeing some of the target share that we were hoping for from him. Got the 9 targets, 8 catches, 110, no touchdown, but like finally was the main piece that could be involved there. And Cincinnati keeps rattling off win after win after win, but there's no value attacking CJ Stroud at 6.5 here with no T. Higgins on the field. Gonna get Trent Irwin. Oh yeah, put another shrimp on the barbie. Over 46.5, it's just a lean. I really have no interest in this game, which is sad. I have interest in DFS. Jamar Chase, we're gonna roster him a bunch, but again, don't really find any of these numbers that palatable. Now, people in the premium Discord know one thing that started to pop up quite a bit in my analysis is rushing yards for quarterbacks, which sounds stupid because, again, it might feel like it's high volatility, like it's very unpredictable. Eric, this guy had 0 rushing yards. Now he's got 47. This guy, he's had 3 rushing yards mostly, like Derek Carr never runs. This guy always runs, yada, 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 so on and so forth. Here's the thing. We're here to bet and make money. And sometimes these high variance, high volatility spots, there's a larger edge to attack than most. However, this was sitting at 12.5 earlier on Thursday. And then this morning on Friday, when I looked at it, when I was recording, 14.5 rushing yards we're looking at here for Jordan Love against Pittsburgh. Let's talk through why that's important. And then I'm going to give you something else that I'm also leaning on that I'm probably going to fire up sooner rather than later, but we'll get there. First of all, Pittsburgh, Kenny Pickett, Deontay Johnson, like the rapport there, very low ADOT, so average depth of target. Kenny Pickett is not very good. I think Jordan Addison deserves a free fruit basket every single day for the rest of his life. For Kenny Pickett's last year at Pittsburgh, Jordan Addison, before he transferred to USC, made him a thing. I'm just saying, Kenny Pickett has not looked good. In fact, CJ Stroud has more passing touchdowns now than Kenny Pickett does for his career. That's not great, Bob. That's not great. But what is great, when you're looking at a defense like you got in Pittsburgh, congratulations to y'all. You got a defense. TJ Watt going to attack some humans. Everybody is really, really live there on that side of the football. You got a team that's 5-3 for a reason. Green Bay 3-5. But I want to talk through a little bit of why I think Jordan Love is one of the better rushing plays. I thought about making this. I'm probably going to end up playing this if we're going to be honest. I'm looking at 14.5. It sucks that I missed 2 yards, but again, I think this has a lot to do with how does Green Bay survive and how does Green Bay start to get involved in this offense? Because in negative game scripts, last week against the Rams, he has all of 4 rushing attempts for 7 yards. Not really having to push him down there a little bit, not trying to really force the issue, killing some clock. You had Brett Ripien throwing the football, for God's sake. But Minnesota, Denver, Vegas, the last 3 weeks before it, 34, 21, 37 rushing yards. in spots that were very close, tightly contested football games. I think that's kind of important. And Jordan Love is a piece that Green Bay needs to figure out now what he's going to be for you going forward, because draft comes back around. If Jordan Love isn't your guy, and right now he hasn't looked like your guy, there is an opportunity to take multiple shots in this draft. Not necessarily first round equity. You could wait and maybe somebody like a Will Levis falls down to you further. I don't know who that's going to be. I don't really see him in this year's draft, but you got to kind of assess what you have and try to improve. And Jordan Love, the quarterback position, the most important in the NFL. And obviously, there aren't very many good quarterbacks left here. So Jordan Love, you need to utilize him as best you can. And one of the ways you do that is getting him involved with his legs. Now, he's got 12 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, all intents and purposes decent there. But if you're not going to have him throwing over 250 yards, which he has yet to eclipse this entire season, and you have a team like Pittsburgh that creates a lot of pressure on the quarterback, there might be design runs. There might also be forced runs where TJ Watt is in somebody's mouth hole, and you got to get to Jordan Love. So I am looking at the rushing line here for Jordan Love, 14.5 rushing yards, too low. I've got him around 20 and a half. Now, because the difference between mean and median, I'm not going to be jamming that, even though it's a 6-yard difference. And for a wide receiver, for a running back with some kind of volume, that might be something that you would really kind of attack, where it's like, oh my God, that's like a third of his entire volume that you have difference between what the line is set at and what you're projecting him for. But I think in this spot, I'm probably going to end up passing. I know this is a long talk for a lean. How about we talk about this lean very, very quickly? Aaron Jones saw a majority of the snaps for the first time in a long time. That makes me very, very encouraged. As he continues on, again, if you're going to assess Jordan Love competently, if you're going to look at what he is capable of doing, you want to have the best skill players around. And Aaron Jones, well, he's way better than A.J. Dillon, not just because of what he brings in the dimension of the passing game, but especially that. It's because he's just a better football player in pretty much every single sense of the word. So I am looking exclusively at Aaron Jones to be on the field a lot more. And at plus 165 here on the road, that's another lean I'm looking at. So Jordan Love over 14.5 rushing yards. Aaron Jones anytime touchdown. Haven't bet either yet, but I'm thinking about it, and I'm probably for sure going to pull the trigger there on that Jordan Love prop. I just talked about a rushing yard prop for a quarterback. I couldn't possibly do it again, right? Wrong. Baker Mayfield taking on the Tennessee Titans and Will Levis. This is going to be a fun one. As I look at it, on the surface, he looks calm and ready to drop bombs. That's what Baker Mayfield quietly did last week. Everybody had the hoopla over CJ Stroud, as they should have. But Baker Mayfield, 21 for 30, 70% completion percentage, best number he's had since week 4 against New Orleans, where he played awesome, by the way. But 2 touchdowns. Got a little bit going with, well, he didn't really have anything going with his legs at all. But 12 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, game manager extraordinaire so far this season. He's been quietly a lot better. And I think there was something about going to the Rams on short notice, beating those Raiders at the tail end of last season, knocking the Raiders out of playoff contention, and just having Sean McVay tell you, hey, we want you here. We want to see if you're going to be good, and then we can maybe have a competitive contract. They didn't end up pulling the trigger because Matt Stafford was healthy, and it completely makes sense. You already had a ton invested in him. But it was still great to see Sean McVay utilize Baker Mayfield correctly, show him that he can still play at the NFL level, and now he's doing it with Tampa Bay. Again, very, very quietly. Tennessee, they definitely are attackable here in terms of the secondary. They haven't been as much of a run funnel as what they used, or sorry, pass funnel as what they used to be. They used to be top 3 in stopping the run, and then dead last in passing. This season, it's somewhere around the middle. They're giving up 115 yards per game. That's 19th in the NFL. And then passing yards per game, 223. That's 16th in the NFL. Still think Godwin, still think Evans. A number of pieces there that we can definitely have interest in, but that might be a single game parlay type situation. As it stands right now, my favorite play from this game, even though you get Will Levis, the Hopkins connection, I'm not sure what to make of it. 60.5 seems pretty efficient over there. I'm going to be staying away. But Baker Mayfield, with these legs, he's going to be at home here. Nice conditions. Everything's lovely. At home this season, he has rushing games of 32, 17, 11. And this line sits at 9.5. pretty low. It's pretty darn low. He's also very, very willing to go out and scramble at times. He's had at least one rushing attempt in every single game. He's had 3 in 5 of his last, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, he's had at least 3 in 4 of his last 5. So throwing it out there, Baker Mayfield, a willing participant in the running department. Plus, Rachaad White, he's not out there to run. He's out there to catch passes and be phenomenal in that department. Last week, we saw 20 carries for him very, very quietly. That game shot out like crazy. Y'all saw it. But Baker Mayfield against Tennessee here, I think sub 10 is just a little bit too low. I've got him around 16 rushing yards here. And again, the difference between mean and median can't be emphasized enough. I don't know what else to say. This is something I'm thinking about betting as well. Wanted to talk through some of these rushing yard props because I think there's some value here if we can nail the right guys. I'm going to give you another quick lean here. We've got Cleveland. We've got Baltimore. Division rivalry. That adds a whole nother subtext that I don't really have here. We know in the back of our minds, we watch it, but data doesn't quite quantify Cleveland, Baltimore, just the frozen tundra of Baltimore. It's a weird thing. They used to be the Colts, and it's a whole thing. And teams leaving in Baltimore. Anyway, the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson have looked awesome. A lot of that has been Lamar Jackson setting up Gus Bus, and then Gus Bus, even with like 20% of snaps, just 5 carries last week, scores another 2 touchdowns. It's a little frustrating if you're somebody in fantasy, whether that's DFS or in your year-long teams, being like, hey, why does Lamar Jackson not absolutely smash every single week? Because Baltimore is one of the best teams in the NFL. Well, part of that is that John Harbaugh doesn't give a shit about what you think, and he's just going to go out and win football games, whether that's in the preseason. That streak finally got snapped this preseason, but they just win all the time. Baltimore is a winning football team. Lamar Jackson went healthy here. Nice to see him healthy and not having to have like Huntley running out there nonstop ad nauseum, making you sick. Now, this Cleveland spot is terrifying in every single sense of the word. There's a 38 total for a reason. Baltimore is 6.5-point favorites. That should speak to how good Baltimore is playing. And third overall in PFF grading, Baltimore Ravens. 13th, the Cleveland Browns. We've seen Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper have a little bit of a connection. 1 week does not a connection make, though, and especially against Arizona. But Myles Garrett on the defensive end, phenomenal stuff so far this season. Zadarius Smith, I miss you so much in Minnesota. On the other edge, phenomenal stuff this entire season. The secondary, it's a little bit difficult when you start talking about Greg Newsome. He hasn't been all that great this season. And then Denzel Ward on the other side of him, going to be matched up with Rashad Bateman more likely. I think Zay Flowers probably gets his in the slot. And that's where I'm kind of thinking about betting his anytime touchdown. But my best play from this one right now is just a value play. Plus 180 over at BetMGM Sportsbook. Lamar Jackson over 1.5 touchdowns. As good as what he has been in setting up Gus Bus and stuff, eventually that touchdown variance falls back to Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers, a number of these pieces. And as good as Cleveland's been, again, Myles Garrett is a god amongst men. Number 1 in the NFL as an edge rusher, according to PFF grading in just about every single department. You got enough pieces here that I think Baltimore can get it done here and get Lamar Jackson on the board twice. When we're talking about nearly 2-to-1 money plus 180, it's a value late in play. It does not happen more than half the time. Wouldn't make this one of the staples of your parlay pieces if you're trying to hit one of those guaranteed parlays, but think it's a decent spot, leaning that direction. Lamar Jackson gets it going against Cleveland. Not something you're going to say very often because Cleveland, very good at the defense thing. And this is very good at the whole gambling thing. We're talking Bet365, friends. Bet 5, get $150 in bonus bets if you're in one of these 6 states. Again, only available in 6 states. Going to be in Louisiana soon, so that'll be 7. Look at me, I can do math. But if you're in Colorado, Iowa, Kentucky, New Jersey, Ohio, or Virginia, my friends, you can bet 5 and get $150 in bonus bets. I'm going to be taking advantage of that in like 5.5 hours, 6 hours here. Well, it's actually more like 7.5 because 2 hours, take off, do the whole thing. But heading to New Jersey, got to go to New Jersey, bet 5, get $150 in bonus bets. I'm going to be taking advantage of that. Take advantage of that with me here right now. Again, it's only available in 6 states. When you sign up at the link below, that is good stuff. But yeah, in the states of Kentucky, Virginia, Ohio, New Jersey, Colorado, and Iowa, Bet 5, get 150 in bonus bets if you're 21 and over, 18 and over in Kentucky. If you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back to the picks we go. I'm very excited for this football game. I hope my wife lets me watch it here on our anniversary. But San Francisco taking on Jacksonville. Yeah, Brock Purdy hasn't looked very good the last couple weeks. There is no doubt, but pretty easy reason to figure out why he hasn't. You take a guy, the quality of Deebo Samuel off the field for week 7, week 8. They have a bye week 9. Just saying. Full go Deebo Samuel comes back to the fray here after the bye with that shoulder issue, and that is exciting if you're a San Francisco fan. Also exciting for them. How do you get Chase Young? It's fucking bullshit. But getting Deebo Samuel back is fantastic. Number 19, red 19, the best number in all of roulette. Not that I would know such things. But Jacksonville on the other side, do look at a guy like Trevor Lawrence, who's just been phenomenal in PFF grading, continues to do things that are underappreciated in the NFL. For as big of a name as he was at Clemson, it's taken a little while for him to fall into the public favor. And part of that is playing in a market like Jacksonville. They love him over in London, so that's chill. But 9 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, hasn't gone completely ballistic. In fact, he hasn't thrown over 2 touchdowns in any game yet this entire season, and only 2 touchdowns in 2 of the games that the Jacksonville Jaguars in their 8 games so far this season. But this is a team in Jacksonville that has pieces. Of course, Travis Etienne finding the box repeatedly. Christian Kirk, Calvin Ridley, who's been a little bit disappointing here. This is a very difficult San Francisco matchup that is now somehow more difficult when you start adding in a guy like Chase Young as an edge rusher. What are we even doing here? What are we even doing here? But Jacksonville, 6-2 in actuality, 6-2 against the spread on closing line numbers so far this season as well. Thought about Jacksonville being the bet here. Really thought long and hard about it. And then I just look at the team that's constructed there. Again, how do you get Chase Young? Fucking bullshit. I'll say it again. But I'm looking at shorting George Kittle. One guy who is definitely affected by adding Deebo Samuel, the emergence of Brandon Ayuk, and your offensive schematics with Christian McCaffrey is George Kittle. He's the most affected guy on that field, bar none. And 39.5 seems like a low number. I would argue it should actually be a little bit lower. You saw him emerge 11 targets against Cincinnati, 7 targets against Minnesota. He had 9 targets against the Giants in week 3, otherwise had not been targeted more than 4 times in a game so far that season until week 7. Hard to catch footballs and put up fantasy points and yardage if you're not going to get targeted, just throwing it out there. So this feels like a Deebo Samuel is fully healthy, full go, and we should short George Kittle immediately kind of spot. I only put a half unit on it, so don't go completely crazy, baby. Don't forget that Boyd told you kick that dirt off your shoulder. But minus 115 at BetMGM, too good to pass up. Too good to pass up. TGTPU. There we go. George Kittle, under 39.5 receiving yards. Like it. Why are there no Alexander Madison props? Am I the only person bitching about this? I probably am the only person bitching about this at 5 a.m. on a Friday morning. But you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm upset because I want my Alexander Madison props. The New Orleans Saints favorites heading into my Minnesota Vikings. And I will say, Joshua Dobbs, I apologize. It's like the Shaq gif where it's like, I wasn't really familiar with your game. I guess I got to go even lower. I wasn't really familiar with your game. It was better. It was better. I have a mid to higher range of a voice. I'm an excitable person. What can I say? But looking at my Minnesota Vikings, 5-4, taking on the 5-4 New Orleans Saints, and that defense is for real. And New Orleans has a ton of skill position players, whether it's Camaro, whether it's Chris Olave, whether it's Michael Thomas, who hasn't really had to do jack diddly squat this season, but still, he's there. And he's tall. Probably has an attractive lady in his life. So, I don't know. I'm just looking at Minnesota. TJ Hawkinson's a little bit dinged up. Sounds like he should be good to go, considering he practiced on Thursday. We'll pay closer attention here Friday in a couple hours as they get the final practice reports out. That'll be things to pay attention to. But with No, Cam Akers. Cam Akers gets acquired from the Rams last week against Atlanta. Other Achilles goes boom. Poor guy. Really feel bad for him, but Alexander Mattison is now going to be competing for touches with Ty Chandler. Not exactly good. I don't really know who else. I mean, CJ Ham's a fullback that exists in the world. Shout out Augustana College in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. That's where he went to school. But I am looking at Alexander Mattison props if they were posted. I just want to see them. But in the meantime, how about we do have a half unit play on something? And I'm a little bit timid about this. My dad wasn't, who was like, hey, can you put $100 on the Vikings? No, Dad, they're playing Atlanta. I'm betting -3.5 Atlanta. You're out of the will, son. It's kind of a mean conversation. My dad's lovely. He did not actually say that, but he did actually bet Minnesota, and I actually bet Atlanta, and then he called me and laughed at me. And I'm a Viking fan. My upbringing was tough sometimes. I'm going to bet the Minnesota money line, so I'm surely going to be disappointed this time around. I'm sure Joshua Dobbs, lightning, does it strike twice? Did he learn everybody's name this week? I don't know. All I know is +130 at home. I have to back Minnesota. I just do. It's part of it's like a contract I've made with God and the Northwest, or the northern Minnesota, Northwest Minnesota, over by like Fargo. But it's Moorhead. That's the Minnesota side. Anyway, you guys don't give a shit. Minnesota money line, that's where I'm going. Bet at your own risk. Just know Minnesota always disappoints me, so this is going to be fun. I'm excited for this football game. Atlanta coming off the absolute abomination performance that they had. Taylor Heineke actually played okay. Arthur Smith is a dipshit. I'm very excited, though, for them to go into Arizona, face the worst team in football with the worst record. Oh, sorry, my nose itched for a second. The Carolina Panthers actually have the dead last record, but the Bears have their pick, and it's a whole thing. But Arizona, if the draft started tonight, they would have the #1 pick, and that's cool. Whether they would take a quarterback or not is a question mark, but we're going to find out very shortly, as Kyler Murray has been activated and fired up, is not on the injury report for Week 10. He is going to come off the IR. I'm excited to watch him big time. I'm excited to see him with Trey McBride and Marquise Brown and potentially James Conner, who could also come off the IR here. Lots to pay attention to on the Arizona side of things. Make sure you're reading the tea leaves. Make sure you're reading. I'm not going to do the acronym thing I did before, but I'm actually leaning towards backing them on the money line at +108 because Atlanta, Arthur Smith has them reeling. He benches Desmond Ridder. He brings in Taylor Heineke, who played okay against the Minnesota defense that's been much improved the last couple weeks. Gets Drake London back into the fray, not the band, into the fray, my dear friends. Once more into the breach, my dear friends. Mac Hollins dinged up. Wasn't on the field in practice Thursday, but nobody cares about Mac Hollins. I care about why did Kyle Pitts not get targeted against Minnesota? I have no idea on God's green earth. Why would you throw it to a generational tight end? How about we also let Bijan Robinson waste away in Margaritaville, looking for his lost shaker shot over in Scottsdale? Go get a drink, my friend. Could probably throw a golf ball to my parents' patio. But as I look at this game, it's Arizona or bust for me. +108 over on FanDuel. Maybe there's some props, but you haven't seen Kyler Murray play football this year. I haven't seen Kyler Murray play football this year. The range of outcomes is wide. So I think we just kind of pass on this game. We do not pass on this football game. You shall not pass. That's basically what the Chargers said to like any play the Jets tried to put together last week. That was hilarious. By the way, I scored 33 fantasy points with my defense. There was some weird scoring stuff that happens in my home league, but 33 on a defense. The only team I had remaining, I needed to score 24 with a defense in order to, and then, I mean, touchdowns and 48 sacks and Zach Wilson being Zach Wilson. It was a beautiful thing, I will say. But we're talking betting here, and a lock comes from this one. The Detroit Lions taking on the Los Angeles Chargers and going down in LA. It's going down in an earlier round, and Sugar, we're going down swinging. Justin Herbert's number one with a bullet is definitely getting Austin Eckler back into his life. And then Keenan Allen, he's a loaded God complex, cock it and pull it. So, I mean, other than just quoting out Fallout Boy and doing whatever else, I got to say, there's definitely some hope we have here with Austin Eckler back into this grouping. Even though he broke my heart on Monday, real ones know. We still look at Austin Eckler as a massive improvement over Joshua Kelly, because that's exactly what he is. Joshua Kelly is dust and shall not be talked about any further. From henceforth further, we shall not talk about him. Kind of like we won't talk about the Giants passing game once we get to Tommy DeVito next game. Whew. That is a smelly poopy. But we're looking over here at Jared Goff from the Detroit side. It's on the road. Going back into a stadium, I mean, he doesn't have familiar with this when he played difference. Well, he played here. No, he played in the Coliseum mainly with the Rams. But either way, Jared Goff coming back to LA against the other LA team here in the Chargers. 274.5 passing yards is an absolute metric ton. For one, you saw what this pass rush is capable of. Two, Derwin James, Joey Bosa continuing to be healthy here on this defensive front. That is a problem here for the Chargers. But three, David Montgomery back. I don't know what to make of him and Jahmyr Gibbs, because Jahmyr Gibbs played freaking awesome last time we saw him against Vegas, week 8. They go into the bye week 9. David Montgomery, Iowa State legend for what it's worth, is coming back healthy, participated in full. Him and Jahmyr Gibbs, they're going to be splitting snaps, but like this Detroit team wants to establish the run. They want to run themselves some football, and I see a 48.5 total in this one. Thought about shorting that, but this is even better, friends. I want the under of a team that throws the ball only 56.3% of the time. For context, the Chargers on the other side, 65.1% of the time. 43.7% of the time, we're looking at the Lions running the football. That is a lot in the modern age. Love the modern age. But like also, advanced medicine, lots of other things. And yet we have teams like Detroit. They want to run the football with David Montgomery 32 times against Green Bay, 19 times against Carolina. He gets dinged up in week 6. It is what it is. But I'm just saying, him and Jahmyr Gibbs are going to get a lot of work. I can't imagine you want Jared Goff back there dropping back 40 times. Surely that is not the recipe for success. You saw 53 pass attempts against Baltimore. Not a good game script. You saw 44 against Tampa Bay. A lot of short yardage stuff that got a lot of ADOT work after the fact. 353 yards. But I know for the season, he's got what? 271.8 passing yards per game. This is too high of a line against a Chargers defense that's starting to figure things out. I know the Jets' offensive line is abysmal. I know Zach Wilson is abysmal, but it has more to do with the individual pieces that I believe in, as well as the philosophy of Campbell. Campbell wants to establish the run. I don't think this is an appropriate number here with Jared Goff. So, yes, they are entering this football game in a spot where they are 6-2 against the spread. Chargers 4-4, trying to play for their playoff lives. Scraping, clawing, going to be a wild one. But I think the under of 274.5 for Jared Goff is a lock this week. Fire it up with me, friends. The New York Football Giants are 17-point dogs going into Dallas. What? Tommy DeVito threw for -1 yards in week 8. Threw for 175 and a touchdown in week 9 with 2 picks, and really looked terrible. It was a garbage time touchdown. Let's be dead serious. What? Now, I'm not going to go bold and say Tony Pollard anytime touchdown, even though that's not bold at all. It's a favorite to happen. He only has 2 touchdowns on the season. Thank God we hit eject after week 3. Not going to be spoken of again. Tony Pollard anytime touchdown on this program. I don't have a banned list, but if I did, Tony Pollard would probably be at the top of it after those. And then you got guys like Rico Dowdle who are just like, just laughing in your face, scoring touchdowns against Arizona. What are we doing? He only has 1 fewer touchdown than Tony Pollard this season. That's dumb to say out loud. And CeeDee Lamb's playing really good football, and I really don't want to talk about this football game anymore. It's Tommy DeVito. Dallas is going to smash their faces in. And I thought about 17.5 is a prevailing number a lot of places, but like, why? Why would I do this with money? I could also just fill a kerosene tank with dollar bills and then just throw a match in. That's actually illegal, so I won't do that. But we're looking at Dallas minus 17. That's a lean. I really want nothing to do with this football game. If you watch this football game and you're a Giants fan, you're asking for pain. I don't know why you would do that to yourself. Daniel Jones out for the season. ACL tore it. Watch Netflix. Go for a walk. Go hiking. Play golf if you're in Arizona. It's beautiful. Don't watch this game. For the love of God, cherish it. Do not watch this. Cherish your life. Don't watch this game. All right, let's talk football again, friends. Washington taking on Seattle here for this one. And Seattle, they've been a little bit disappointing in the passing department over the course of this season. Geno Smith, 1,800 yards, 9 touchdowns, 7 picks. But as you work through it, 225 yards per game through the air. That is a far cry from what we were expecting coming off of the tail end of 2022. 2023, not been so kind to Geno, but this is a get-right spot if I've ever seen one. DK Metcalf didn't participate in practice on Thursday with that hip issue, but sounds like he'll be back. You got Jackson Smith and Jake, but he practiced in full. He'll be back. You got the Bobo character who's actually been playing pretty good football. But anyway, I am looking at Seattle as a very pass-happy script for this one against Washington. Because Washington, they just traded away everybody defensively. Just Chase Young, here you go. Go to San Francisco for like a 7th round unprotected. It was like a 3rd round, but like nothing. San Francisco's giving up nothing and getting him. Sweat goes to Chicago for God knows what reason. I don't understand some of these decisions that have been going down the pipeline lately, but I do understand that the Seattle Seahawks are in a great spot here on one side. I'll at least say Sam Howell. He's dropping back an absolute ton. Hasn't been sacked as much the last couple weeks, so shout out to him for like just not being a sitting duck back there like he was before. Creating stuff for Terry McLaurin, creating stuff for Jahan Dotson. I do like that passing attack. Seattle, pretty porous in the secondary as well. But as I look at this one, this is DK Metcalf extraordinaire. It has it written all over it. I'm going to call it a like because I already bet it, and you should bet it too. Half unit on an anytime touchdown for DK Metcalf getting himself into the box. They give up big play after big play. Tyler Lockett, I thought about him as well, kind of being the guy to look at, but these numbers are a little bit deflated. I might as well just go to the guy who's built like a Greek god, guy who has 2 touchdowns on the season, hasn't scored since week 4. This is a good number to be getting against Washington. Plus 150. This is going to be a top 3 bottom defense going forward. They weren't all that good with Young, with Sweat. So, like, fire this up. Half unit, enjoy. We had the prop lock. Let's go to Sunday Night Football for my other lock of the evening. Yes, of the evening. I'm excited for UFC 295. I hope you are too. But the Jets taking on the Raiders. Look at this, my friend. Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson played terrible. Horrible. No good. Very bad football against the Chargers. So what happens? The Jets are favored? The Jets are favored on Sunday night? The hell they are. Let's look at this. Aiden O'Connell. I understand that this isn't Jimmy Garoppolo back there. And Jimmy Garoppolo playing some really safe, frugal football. He's a beautiful man who's probably going to enjoy himself some Vegas nightlife very, very shortly here. He's been known to do that from time to time. Why wouldn't he? He completely deserves it. But Aiden O'Connell, not exactly inspiring stuff over the course of his couple starts this season, but been better than Jimmy Garoppolo. Been a lot better than Jimmy Garoppolo in a lot of metrics. One of them being he makes Josh Jacobs pretty darn relevant. Maybe not as much in the passing game as you were hoping last week, but you definitely got the production on the ground here for the first time in a long time. Nice to see this Vegas team start to figure it out a little bit. Devontae Adams didn't even really need to get involved whatsoever last week. 7 targets, 4 catches, 34 yards, and nothing else. Davante Adams could feast here. Now, I understand Sauce Gardner is fantastic. I understand that the main reason that we're talking about them being underdogs is because the Jets defense is quite possibly the best defensive unit in all of football. I'm not going to say that they aren't. PFF has them graded second. I mean, Cleveland, do they deserve a higher grade there? I don't know. You got Quinnen Williams, who I mean, it's him and Jalen Carter in some capacity. I don't know who I would start if I had to pick one for a defensive interior lineman, but like, they're both absolutely incredible. And Quincy Williams, the linebacker, outrageous. We obviously know CJ Mosley, one of the best players in all of football as well. And the number one graded cornerback in football is DJ Reed over at PFF. Sauce Gardner not far behind there at 7th, but Davante Adams is like built different. And eventually he'll break out. Didn't have to utilize him in any capacity last week. That game was pretty well in check against a Giants team. DeVito wasn't going to do jack diddly squat against you. It just is what it is. But I look at some of the metrics here. Breece Hall, getting a lot more work. Is he set up to be getting a lot more work here? 16 carries, 50 yards. 12 carries, 17 yards against the Giants. 12 for 39. Something tells me as the season's gone on, there might be a little fatigue setting in on a guy who probably didn't have a huge summer base, didn't have an opportunity to go completely ballistic the way that most people would coming off of a major injury. So Breece Hall, I think he's one of the most dynamic players in football. But if you're looking at a one-dimensional Zach Wilson on the road in Vegas, Max Crosby on the other side, I got to think this offensive line is not going to necessarily hold up the way that it did last week at home, don't you think? This is one of the worst offensive lines in football, and that's why Breece Hall is not failing. I just kind of was doing a talking thing about his metrics or whatever else. But I'm looking at Malcolm Consey. I think he's actually going to be able to be a decent enough edge rusher in the NFL here too. Max Crosby has been for damn sure one of the best edge rushers in football. 3rd in PFF grading this season. You got Hobbs, you got Peters on both sides at the quarterback position, the cornerback position. Just making sure people don't do the YouTube comment thing. I just look at Vegas as way undervalued here in this spot. They could just establish the run with Josh Jacobs. Avoid some of that crazy Mosley and Williams, the law firm of Williams and Williams pass rush. And you could be sitting in a pretty good spot backing a team that is not favored against Zach Wilson at home. Say that one more time. The Vegas Raiders are not favored against Zach Wilson at home. Lock button. See you next week. Go to that comment section below. Let me know your favorite games, your favorite plays, everything for Sunday, Week 10. I'm going to be in New York City. I'll be doing live before lock over on the Stokastic YouTube channel over there. Check that out. Give that a follow. Give that a like. If you're into the fantasy world, into DraftKings, FanDuel, in the fantasy department, as well as your year-long questions, all will be revealed and answered over there. Week 10, excited to be breaking that down with my buddy Matt Kajeski, who you might know from the college football streets over here at Odd Chopper. Also, smash that like button. Also, give my guy, producer Jacob, some love. He's going to be editing this sucker here in the wee hours of the morning. Very, very proud of that young man. But check out Bet365. I'm going to be checking them out very, very shortly in about 7-ish hours here. I'm going to be signing up over in New Jersey. Again, it's available in 6 states: New Jersey, Ohio, Colorado, Iowa, Virginia, and Kentucky. 21 and over if you're in one of those states, 18 and over in Kentucky. And if you have a gambling problem, please call 1-800-GAMBLER. That does it for me, friends. I hope we absolutely smash here. Hopefully we can just run away from Austin Eckler Monday Night Madness. That made me so sad. But I'll be breaking down Monday night for you as well over on the Odd Chopper channel or at oddchopper.com in article form. Until then, friends, I'm Eric Lindquist. Best of luck in the NFL streets on Sunday.